Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back in time to the dim corridors of a medieval abbey, where you probably won't survive if you try to wing it without a proper briefing, pun absolutely intended. Picture yourself in soft candlelight, the scent of aged stone mingling with a hint of something grainy and warm, and you realize you're about to learn what monks fed their pet ravens at dawn. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drag your feet across the cold flagstones, each step echoing softly in the cloister's hush, and a gentle breeze carries the faint scent of barley. The first light of day filters through stained glass windows, painting the walls in muted reds and blues. It feels less like you've stumbled into a monastery and more like you've wandered into a bird cafe where the main customers happen to have wings. The monks, clad in woolen habits that probably feel like wearing a medieval sleeping bag, gather in a quiet semicircle. They carry small wooden bowls cradling what looks like porridge, but trust me, it's a special blend cracked barley soaked in warm milk. You lean in, nose twitching, and it's almost like inhaling a latte, if your latte were served without a lid and with about 3 times the barley. One brother offers a gentle coo. Here Edgar, and a sleek raven swoops down with all the grace of a feathered torpedo. You marvel at its glossy black plumage, each feather catching the dawn's glow like obsidian shards. A light sarcasm slides into your mind. These monks are basically running a bird brunch spot that no Starbucks would dare replicate. The raven pecks at the barley, and you can almost hear it mumble something like, "Needs more honey," and perfect avian grumble. But instead of sugar, the monks believe this ritual feed helps the birds maintain their uncanny memory. Rumor has it a raven once guided a lost pilgrim for miles just by following the breadcrumb trail in its own mind. Sensory details flood in. The porridge is warm against your fingertips as you touch the wooden bowl left for you to hold the steam curling upward in lazy spirals. The distant toll of the abbey bell marks the passing of the hour. Your ears pick up soft coos and the flapping of wings overhead. You catch a whiff of something earthy, fresh straw strewn across the courtyard floor to keep the dew at bay. It's both calming and a little unnerving to think these same birds were once the symbol of war and prophecy in Norse myths, and here they are, politely nibbling on barley like raven-sized food critics. As you watch one raven scarily intelligent, you might add tilts its head at you as if to say, "You look like you could use some extra porridge yourself." You can't help but crack a joke. If only monks had invented avocado toast back then, these ravens would be lining up like hipsters outside a modern cafe. But instead it's all about barley and milk, a humble mix that sustained humans for centuries, and apparently proven to keep corvids content enough to avoid stealing your breakfast pie. And speaking of history, did you know the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215 happened just a couple of centuries after abbeys started keeping ravens? It's a popular historical event that reshaped medieval power dynamics. Yet somehow feeding birds in the dawn light is the real quiet revolution. Don't you think historians still debate whether abbey ravens inspired heraldic symbols in later centuries, or if it was purely decorative fluff? But either way, the ritual stuck around longer than some royal dynasties. You bend down and let a timid raven hop onto your leather-bound knee. Its weight is surprisingly solid, an almost comical contrast to its sleek appearance. You hear its claws click-clack on your tunic, and you swear you feel a tiny nudge like a feathered nudge from history itself. The monk guiding you whispers, "They remember kindness." It sounds like a self-help slogan from a monastery Instagram account that definitely didn't exist. You imagine a monk taking a selfie with a raven, "Laum blessed by bird, no filter needed." Somewhere in the background, a novice monk accidentally stumbles, dropping a few grains. Immediately, two younger ravens swoop in their wings, beating in a soft, fluttering crescendo that feels almost musical. You nearly jump out of your habit, though you assure yourself it's just the ASMR effect of bird wings rustling. The sensory hum of feathers, the slight crackle of grains under beak, the distant chant of monks practicing Gregorian melodies, all conspire to lull you into a cozy state, even as you marvel at how everyday life and surprising rituals collide in the most fascinating ways. At one point, you catch a strange fact. Some medieval monks believed ravens could carry snippets of souls on their wings, guiding lost spirits to peace. It's the kind of detail that makes you pause mid-bite of your own porridge, if you had any, and wonder how on earth someone first decided to feed ghosts to birds. Modern comparison, it's like adding a spirit booster shot to your cappuccino. You probably won't survive a ghost-guiding latte, but these monks rolled with it. Above shafts of morning light shift as a chapel window swings open, spilling more warmth into the courtyard. You can't help but think, if these walls could talk, they'd mention hundreds of dawn rituals. But for you, this feeding ceremony becomes the moment everything clicks. The raven's feathers ruffle, and you feel a calm companionship you didn't know you needed. You dip a finger into the barley mix just to see if it's sweet enough for your taste, and jokingly offer the raven a taste test. It declines, pecking politely at the grains in its own bowl. By now your eyes have adjusted to the amber glow, and you realize how this simple ritual set the tone for an entire abbey's day: work, prayer, and quiet reflection, all centered around these enigmatic birds. You breathe in deeply, savoring the steam and stone, the hush, and the soft call of ravens greeting the sunrise. In the previous part, you glimpse the hush of dawn. Here, you live it. And so, as the final raven finishes its bowl, you step back, letting the monks gather up empty bowls like talented baristas, closing shop. You feel a gentle contentment, like you've just attended a magical breakfast service that Wikipedia never credits you for. The ritual ends, but its echo lingers: the smell of barley, the feel of feathers, the promise that even in the cold stone walls of history, warmth and care persist one raven-sized plate at a time. Now, you're ready for more secrets from the cloister. When you're set, just say "continue," and we'll slip further into the daily life of those medieval bird keepers. You slip into the sunlit refectory just as the midday meal is winding down, and your eyes immediately lock onto a curious scene: piles of crusty, forgotten bread lining long wooden tables, like a hidden treasure trove for anyone who isn't afraid of a little mold. The monks move with quiet efficiency, gathering these crusts hard as paving stones from bowls and plates their robes, whispering against the stone floor. You can almost taste the faint tang of yesterday's dough wrenched from the jaws of waste, and you wonder whether modern bakeries ever feel the sting of such ruthless thrift. Your fingertips brush the uneven surface of a loaf that's been drying since dawn, and you catch whiffs of faint sourdough aroma mixed with the sharp edge of age. It's not the kind of bread you'd buy in a fancy market stall, but here it's culinary gold, the perfect base for a raven banquet. You watch as a brother hefts a wicker basket and begins crumbling crusts into a massive wooden trough. The resulting cascade of broken baguettes, pumpernickel, and coarse rye resembles something between artisanal granola and medieval confetti. Sensory details flood your mind, the soft thump of crusts hitting wood, the muted scrape of a monk's sandals on flagstones, and the distant hum of chanting drifting from the chapel. The air tastes of humility and grit, as if you're breathing in the very essence of monastic thrift. You can practically feel the bite of those crunchy bread bits under a raven's beak. Imagine popcorn if popcorn were eternally stale and somehow more nourishing. It's easy to forget that while you're marveling at a monk's ability to repurpose sacrament leftovers back in 1066, the Battle of Hastings was raging and reshaping all of England. That clash of Norman and Anglo-Saxon forces was one of the most popular historical events that transformed medieval Europe. And yet here you are watching monks redefine the concept of leftovers. Historians still debate whether William the Conqueror would have fared any better if his army had eaten a stale bread buffet before the fight, but let's be honest, it's unlikely the Duke of Normandy was doling out croutons. As you watch, the crusts are soaked in a thin gruel of broth, leftover vegetable scraps and drippings from the morning stew, until they soften into a mushy porridge. The sound of ladles stirring this amalgam is oddly soothing, like rain pattering against a window. You lean closer, inhaling the smoky scent of onions mingled with the mellow tang of old ale, which monks sometimes add for extra calories. It's like a rustic French onion soup that moonlights as raven pâté, definitely not on any modern brunch menu. A sudden flurry of wings heralds the arrival of your black feathered dining companions. One raven lands on the edge of the trough, tilting its head at you, its eye gleaming like polished jet. You bend down and hear the satisfying slurp of softened bread as it drowns in broth, an ASMR moment so intense it could rival the hiss of a coffee machine. A second raven hops forward, grabbing a chunk with its beak and performing a quick 20-point inspection as if it's critiquing the flavor notes for a gourmet review. You half expect it to spit out a crust and mutter, "Needs more rosemary." Here's a strange fact. Few people know monks sometimes tossed a pinch of crushed snail shells into the bread mash to boost calcium ostensibly for their own brittle bones. But the ravens got the benefit too. You can't help but chuckle, imagining a snail shell crumb crunch beneath a raven's talon. Historians still debate whether this practice was driven by true nutritional wisdom or mere alchemical superstition. But apparently, it worked. Those ravens lived longer than some of the monastery sheep. You glance over at a monk who's pretending not to notice your amusement. He wipes his hands on his habit and offers you a chipped clay cup brimming with watered-down wine hospitality in medieval style. You raise an eyebrow. Let me guess, fermenting the leftovers makes a nice bread bowl rinse. The monk just smiles, as though you've just delivered the wittiest quip since Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. Above, a lone raven spreads its wings theatrically and takes flight, scattering a few stray crumbs across the courtyard. The rest follow in a flapping procession that echoes like a dark symphony against the abbey walls. You step back, letting the monks finish scooping up empty bowls with the same reverence a modern barista reserves for that final shot of espresso in an almost empty cup. Just as you're about to slip away, you catch yourself smiling. This humble feast of stale bread and scraps has an unexpected warmth, a reminder that in a world obsessed with perfection, there's something deeply satisfying about repurposing the imperfect. In the previous part, you felt the hush of dawn. Here, you've savored the earthy comfort of noonday ingenuity. And trust me, there's plenty more where that came from. Just say, continue when you're ready for the next taste of monastic marvels. You shuffle behind Brother Elfric as he leads you down a narrow stone passage reeking of salt and sea air, the walls slick with condensation. The faint drip-drip of water echoes around you like a distant metronome, and you wonder if you've stumbled into a fish cathedral rather than a storehouse. Lantern in hand, you step over coiled ropes and wooden barrels stamped with faded heraldry, each one bulging with smoked herring and cod trimmings destined for raven banquets. It's immediately clear that these aren't your average bird snacks. This is gourmet fish scrap territory. The scent hits you next, a heady mix of brine wood smoke and something faintly sweet from aging barrels. You breathe it in, and it's as if someone handed you a medieval sea breeze cocktail, no lime wedge included. Brother Elfric, with a grin that suggests he's let you in on the Abbey's best-kept secret, taps a barrel with his staff. Here, he says we rescue the leftovers from fishermen who'd otherwise toss them back into the tide. You can almost hear the departed scraps sigh in relief. He lifts a heavy lid to reveal piles of salt-cured phyllis and oddly shaped off-cut slivers of fish you didn't know could exist. You bend close ear, brushing against damp wood, and you swear you hear the faint crackle of salt crystals shifting. Historians still debate whether coastal monasteries trading preserved fish scraps with local fishermen spurred early market regulations, he whispers, and you nearly drop your lantern in surprise. Who knew raven feed could be the spark for medieval commerce? As you reach in to pick up a handful of cod trimmings, your fingers tingle at the cold, and the oily residue glints like wet onyx. It feels slick between your fingers, reminding you of that time you spilled olive oil all over your kitchen counter, except this is more dignified, and you're less likely to slip and faceplant. You pop a single scrap into your mouth, purely for research purposes, of course, and the salty richness floods your senses. It's like a fish jerky that's gone to finishing school. Just then, the distant toll of the Abbey bell rumbles through the corridors. You realize that while you're sampling raven appetizers, the Third Crusade was mustering armies thousands of miles away in 1189, with knights swearing oaths that echoed far louder than any call. It's one of the most popular historical events of the era. Yet here you are discovering how fish offcuts kept the Abbey's corvid companions content. You can't help but imagine crusading knights pausing mid-charge to toss a fish scrap to a hovering raven, if only for the morale boost. Elfric motions you forward into a sunlit courtyard where two adult ravens perch on a low stone wall, their feathers ruffled from the damp. He dips a ladle into a vat of warm water, swirling the fish scraps until they separate into tender flakes. The sound is strangely soothing, a soft plop, a gentle swirl like stirring sugar into tea. ASMR gurus would be jealous. You lean in to feel the mist on your cheek as he lifts the ladle toward waiting beaks. The ravens launch into action, eyes glinting with anticipation. One swoops down its claws, clicking on stone, and greedily snatches a flake. The other, more discerning, tilts its head and inspects the offering as if judging a Michelin star dish. You glance at Elfric, who shrugs and mutters, "They have standards." You grin modern food critics on Yelp have nothing on these feathered gourmets. Here's a strange fact. Few people know monks once believed that the oily richness of fish scraps kept ravens' feathers glossy enough to ward off evil spirits. It's the sort of detail that makes you pause mid-bite of your imaginary fish flake and chuckle. You lean against the wall, the stone cool beneath your elbow, watching sunlight dance on iridescent wings. It feels almost ceremonial, like you're witnessing a sacred rite of sea and sky. You dip your finger into the steaming vat and let the water drip between your fingers. There's a tingle, a flash of salt, and then the soothing warmth spreads through your hand. It's a strangely intimate way to connect with history, no museum glass, separating you from the past. You imagine monks centuries ago marveling at the same sensation, sharing whispered jokes about seagulls crashing their bird brunch. Suddenly, a young novice dashes in, tripping over a coil of rope and sending a spray of fish flakes into the air. You inhale sharply as flakes drift down like bizarre confetti, landing on your hair and shoulders. The ravens go wild, wings beating in a flurry as they dive to recover each morsel. You laugh, half in surprise, half in admiration. These birds really know how to throw a party whenever there's fish involved. As the courtyard settles, you notice the distant strains of lute music drifting from the great hall. It reminds you that during the same century, troubadours roamed Europe, spawning the tradition of courtly love poetry. That melodic backdrop blends unexpectedly with the raucous cawing and splashing water. Here, it's a time travel mixtape you never knew you needed. One raven hops onto your shoulder, its claws light but firm, peering at you with curious eyes. You feel its soft down tickle your ear, and you swear it's whispering. "More scraps, please." You oblige by feeding it a generous flake, and it nibbles appreciatively, fluffing its feathers in satisfaction. You realize that this partnership between monk and raven is as intricate as any diplomatic treaty signed at the time, silent, subtle, and profoundly interdependent. Before you leave, Aelfric presses a small pouch of dried fish bits into your hand. "For later," he says with a wink. You tuck it into your cloak, already imagining sharing them with modern-day corvid rescue shelters, if you dare translate medieval cuisine for 21st century taste buds. You offer a final glance at the vat, now nearly empty, and the contented ravens perched like black sentinels in the fading light. In the previous parts, you've tasted dawn porridge and repurposed stale bread. Here, you've savored the sea's bounty, turned into raven delicacies. You feel a sense of kinship with generations of monks who found beauty and purpose in every scrap. And when you're ready to unearth more monastic marvels, just whisper, "Continue," and we'll stroll further into the abbey's hidden rituals. You push open a heavy oak door into the abbey's infirmary kitchen, and a wave of fragrant steam hits you like a warm herbal hug. The room is lined with wooden barrels of dried lavender rosemary sprigs hanging from rafters, and bundles of thyme tied with twine. It feels less like a medieval hospital and more like an apothecary-themed spa, if that spa were staffed by monks in brown robes instead of towel-wrapped estheticians. Your eyes settle on a massive cauldron bubbling over a smoky hearth, the liquid inside swirling in gentle eddies of emerald and amber. A brother ladles out fragrant broth into shallow wooden bowls, each swirl releasing the scent of chamomile sage and a hint of mint so crisp it practically gives you goosebumps. If you've ever sipped a modern wellness tea infused with turmeric, imagine that, but distilled into a hearty soup for corvid connoisseurs rather than small Instagram-friendly teacups. You lean in as the monk murmurs. This blend soothes both bird and body, and you can almost feel the warmth radiating off the rim as you hold the bowl close to your face. The steam carries whispers of time's earthiness and the sharp brightness of rosemary, an aromatic duet that makes you wonder why those herbs ever slept in a garden when they were born to star in a raven-worthy broth. Your nose picks up a distant metallic tang from the ladle, a reminder that everything here is crafted from repurposed infirmary scraps and leftover tonic ingredients. In the background, you hear the steady murmur of chanting monks preparing for Vespers, and your mind flicks back to the founding of the University of Oxford around 1096, one of the most popular historical events that kick-started scholastic life in England. You imagine scholars sipping this very broth between lectures on logic and grammar, believing it sharpened their minds as much as it healed their coughs. Historians still debate whether monastic herbal remedies influenced early medical curricula or if it was simply monastic bragging rights over parish healers. A second monk approaches with a wooden ladle dripping verdant liquid, and you watch as he carefully crushes a handful of pink rose petals, stirring them into the broth for a final flourish. It's a strange fact. Few people know that some brothers believed crushed rose petals lent ravens a mellower temper, curbing their natural tendency to squawk at sunrise. You can't help but grin at the thought, a hush-fueled bird spa, courtesy of medieval horticulture. You dip a spoon into the cauldron, letting a drop splatter onto the stone floor with a soft sizzle, and smell the sweet undercurrent of lavender, soothing enough to make you think of bubble baths, if bubble baths came with chance instead of rubber duckies. The broth's warmth nudges at your senses, coaxing out a gentle hum from deep within your chest. It's like ASMR for your soul right before bedtime. Nearby, a raven perches on a low table, its dark eyes glinting as it cocks its head at you. You hand it a bowl, and it hops forward, ruffling its feathers, then takes a dainty sip. The liquid drips from its beak in slow, deliberate drops, each one a tiny punctuation to the quiet. You half expect it to let out a contented caw that translates to, "This needs less mint and more sage," but instead it simply closes its eyes in Ravenese bliss. You notice a small stack of leather-bound herb manuals on a shelf, recipes for cough syrups, poultices, and apparently raven dinners. You slide one down and see marginal notes in Latin ad vervain for extra fortitude. Historians still debate whether vervain in the diet improved avian longevity or simply gave them indigestion. You chuckle, imagining a monk hunched over parchment, arguing with an invisible rival scribe about whether or not ravens preferred thyme over marjoram. As the final bowl is distributed, you step back into the corridor, the scent of herbs lingering in your hair like an invisible crown. In earlier moments, you felt dawn's barley hush and tasted the crunch of stale bread. Here, you've inhaled the soothing brew of monastic medicine turned bird banquet. You run your fingers along the cauldron's rim, feeling its heat fade, and sense the gentle rhythm of abbey life, moving on prayer, study, labor, and always care for these intelligent black-feathered companions. When your curiosity has been fully steeped in herb-infused wonder, simply say, "Continue," and we'll wander deeper into the Abbey's secret rituals that keep ravens and perhaps your own heart warm long after the hearth's glow dims. You push through the low-arched doorway into the candle workshop, and the moment you step inside, you're enveloped in the warm, honeyed scent of melting beeswax. A sensory hug so cozy it makes you wonder why modern spas haven't cashed in on medieval monk aromatherapy. Long benches are lined with wooden molds shaped like tiny loaves, stars, and even miniature bird silhouettes, each glistening under flickering tallow lamps. You can practically feel the soft heat radiating off the vats, where molten wax swirls in liquid gold pools as if someone melted a sunbeam. A raggedy apprentice monk shuffles by carrying a ladle dripping with viscous amber liquid. You reach out and a single drop falls onto your finger, warming it instantly and releasing an undercurrent of sweet honey notes. It's like dipping your finger into a 12th century gourmet honey stick, no sticky plastic needed. You lick it cautiously for research, and the sweetness slides across your tongue, balanced by the smooth, almost buttery texture of pure beeswax. Modern comparison, imagine a honey-scented lip balm. You could actually eat zero preservatives full artisanal cred. Near the back, a master candle maker carefully pours honey-infused wax into delicate molds. He explains in hushed tones that these aren't candles at all, but raven treats, each one designed to reward the birds for faithful watchkeeping. You watch as he sprinkles bits of crushed pollen into one batch, causing the surface to shimmer faintly in the dim workshop light. It's a strange fact. Few people know that beeswax blended with honey and pollen can exhibit a soft, luminescent glow. At dusk, tiny lanterns for feathered friends. The soft drip of wax droplets hitting a stone slab creates a gentle ASMR backdrop, and you lean in, letting the rhythmic plinks lull you. The walls are streaked with beeswax dribbles in abstract patterns, monastic Jackson Pollocks, if you will. You swallow a laugh, imagining a raven critiquing modern art needs more contrast, less drip. The candlemaker chuckles and offers you a molded wax star, explaining that the treat's crisp edges make for more satisfying beak chiseling. In one corner, a basket overflows with offcuts, odd shapes, too small for candles, but perfect morsels for corvid connoisseurs. A novice monk, cheeks still rosy from hauling honey jars, tosses a handful to a pair of waiting ravens who catch them mid-air with acrobatic flair. You marvel at the precision. It's like watching trained athletes snag bite-sized snacks in slow motion. You try to mimic their skill, nearly spit the treat into your own face in a spectacular misfire. The candlemaker mutters, "Stick to tasting, friend," and you grin. While Europe reels from the ravages of the Black Death in 1347, when entire villages vanished and fear hung thicker than tallow smoke, these same workshops doubled as places of solace and sweetness. It's one of the most popular historical events of the medieval era, yet here you are discovering how monks found comfort in crafting honeyed wax treats for ravens, even as plague bells tolled. Historians still debate whether these luminous morsels were meant to distract ravens from mass graves or to symbolize hope in the darkest times. You dip a tool into a shallow dish of melted wax, tinted with a streak of crimson from saffron used sparingly, as the spice was more valuable than a knight's ransom. The candlemaker explains that saffron not only gave treats a royal hue, but also a subtle flavor that ravens seem to adore. It's oddly comforting to think these birds once tasted the same exotic spice that graced nobles' tables. You imagine a raven snootily refusing plain wax and demanding the saffron special, much like customers in a modern cafe, snubbing anything without a pumpkin spice twist. The workshop's windows are small and shuttered, but slats of afternoon sun carve golden lines across the floor, illuminating floating dust motes that dance like miniature specters. A third raven hops onto a low stool, its claws clicking softly. You offer it a star-shaped treat, and it pecks methodically, savoring each edge before breaking off the center chunk. The candlemaker winks. They say the irregular shapes help exercise their beaks and prevent boredom. A useful form of avian enrichment, you think one that no zoo handbook mentions. You notice a ledger on a nearby shelf inscribed with volumes of recipes, proportions of wax to honey bloom, times even notes on which shapes produced the loudest crackle, an unintentional alarm system when ravens dropped their treats at night. A marginal note reads, "Add a hint of lavender to calm shriekers." It strikes you as both pragmatic and whimsical monastic pragmatism, infused with a dash of medieval mischief. As the afternoon sun wanes, the candlemaker sweeps up stray wax shards and gathers any unfilled molds for tomorrow's batch. You run your finger along a bench stained gold, feeling the residue cool under your touch. It's a tactile anchor, connecting you to the countless hands that molded, poured, and perfected these treats across centuries. You breathe in again, filling your lungs with that sweet wax honey aroma, comforting, creamy, and oddly nurturing. When you finally step back through the workshop door, the honeyed scent clings to your cloak, a lingering reminder of the Abbey's blend of craft devotion and feathered fellowship. In earlier parts, you've tasted dawn porridge, crunched stale bread, savored fish scraps, and steeped herbal broths. Here, you've experienced the golden glow of honeyed wax treats, forged in love and necessity. Whenever you're ready for the next secret of monastic marvels, perhaps the grand festival grain medley, or pilgrim offering leftovers, just say, "Continue," and we'll glide further into the Abbey's hidden chapters. You step into the Abbey's great courtyard and are immediately enveloped by the heady aroma of roasted grains, sweet berries, and toasted nuts, the sensory equivalent of walking into a modern farmer's market at peak harvest. Golden sunlight filters through fluttering pennants, their hues echoing the amber of barley and the russet of chestnuts, as you weave between long trestle tables, groaning under woven baskets brimming with spelt millet and glistening clusters of plump rowan berries. A gentle breeze stirs the tapestry of scents, warm, nutty, fruity, and earthy all at once, like the most elaborate porridge imaginable, only thousands of raven-sized servings at scale. You lean in to scoop a handful of rainbow-colored medley cracked wheat, flecked with dried cherries, toasted hazelnuts, and tiny kernels of safflower-stained barley, and the grains cascade through your fingers with an almost musical rustle. It's pure ASMR bliss, the soft crack of nuts, the whisper of kernels sliding across wood, the distant laughter of novices darting about. You tilt your head, savoring the subtle clink of tiny porcelain bowls as a monk ladles the medley into awaiting raven beaks. The contrast between the coarse stone beneath your boots and the supple richness of these harvest treats could not be more striking. Nearby, a trio of ravens jostles over a berry-studded mound, each bird's glossy feathers catching the light like shards of obsidian. One raven darts in, plucks a bright red rowan berry, and tosses it deftly into its beak, an artful display that rivals any street performer's precision. You can't help but quip that these birds put Instagram influencers to shame with their perfect photo op angles. The monks chuckle, and you realize that this harvest festival is as much a celebration of community as it is of culinary ingenuity. In the background, the tinkling melody of a hurdy-gurdy drifts from the minstrel's corner, mingling with soft evening prayers echoing from the chapel. It reminds you that in 800 AD, Charlemagne was crowned emperor of the Romans, one of the most popular historical events that signaled the dawn of a new European realm. Yet here, the true coronation is occurring under canvas canopies, a feast for ravens that honors their place in abbey life. Historians still debate whether this festival tradition began as pagan harvest rites repurposed by Christian monks, or as a unique monastic innovation. Either way, the result is undeniably festive. You scoop a spoonful of the hearty mix, letting the sweet tang of dried currants and the smoky crunch of toasted barley swirl across your tongue for research, of course. It's like sampling a granola bar brewed with artisanal care, minus any modern preservatives or marketing jargon. You close your eyes and inhale deeply, realizing that this medieval snack could easily be repackaged for today's health food aisles, ancient superfood anyone. A sudden murmur ripples through the crowd as a monk raises a wooden chalice filled with a frothy barley wine spiced with clove and cinnamon. You accept a small sip, and the effervescent warmth coats your throat, carrying hints of honey and wild nutmeg harvested from the monastery's own spice garden. It's a strange fact. Few people know that some abbeys imported exotic spices. Even a tiny pinch of nutmeg was prized like gold and added them sparingly to raven feed to mark special occasions. You can almost taste the thrill those birds must have felt, like finding a surprise chocolate truffle in a bowl of cereal. As twilight deepens, lanterns carved from hollow gourds flicker to life, their soft glow illuminating the festival tables. You feel the slight chill in the air, and above you the silhouettes of ravens wheel against the burnished sky, their calls echoing like sentinels marking time. There's something profoundly comforting in this blend of ritual and revelry. The same stones that have witnessed midnight vigil now cradle the laughter of novices and the amused caws of feathered guests. You bend down and notice a small plaque carved into the table's edge, a dedication to the raven companion of prayer and promise. It's a poignant reminder that these birds were more than mere mascots. They were woven into the spiritual fabric of monastic life. You recall earlier moments, the hush of dawn, barley porridge, the crunch of stale bread, the brine-kissed fish, scraps, the healing herbal broth, the honeyed wax treats, all leading to this vibrant festival crescendo. Across the courtyard, a brother invites you to try your hand at crafting a miniature grain wreath, a token to hang above the raven perches. You thread sprigs of dried barley and tiny clusters of blue juniper berries, the textures soft under your fingertips, yet firm enough to hold their shape. It's a tactile reminder of the abbey's seamless blend of work and worship artistry and avian care. Finally, as the festival winds down, monks gather the leftover medley unsold grains, bruised berries, broken nutshells, and feed them to a final row of waiting ravens. You watch as the birds peck methodically, each nibble a testament to gratitude and community. The soft hum of the gourd lanterns, the rustle of grain, husks the distant chant, it all converges into one gentle lullaby of harvest and hospitality. When you're ready to uncover more monastic marvels, perhaps the pilgrim offering leftovers or the garden gleaning greens, just whisper continue, and we'll drift further into the abbey's hidden chapters of raven devotion. You linger in the dim afterglow of the great refectory long after the pilgrims have filed out their lanterns, bobbing like fireflies into the night. The long tables, once heaped with steaming bowls of pottage and platters of roast fowl, now stand empty, save for a few stray scrap slivers of roast beef, wilted cabbage leaves, and the dregs of savory broth pooled in chipped wooden bowls. A hush settles over the hall, broken only by the soft scrape of sandals on stone as monks move methodically from table to table, gathering these humble remnants. You follow close senses alight with the mingled aromas of garlic, rosemary, and faint clove, and you can't help but wonder how many pilgrims escape the heat of the desert only to feast here before dawn's vigil. Each monk carries a small wicker basket lined with fresh moss to cushion the food and filter-out grit. You crouch to inspect a handful of mealy potatoes leftovers from the pilgrim's supper, still warm with the promise of nourishment. The air tastes faintly of spiced wine, courtesy of cups that once brimmed at the pilgrims' tables, and you catch a hint of smoke where embers still glow beneath the hearth. It feels part sanctified kitchen and part spectral feast hall, as though the ghosts of pilgrims linger leaning in to steal one more taste. You note the tender ritual. Before collecting the scraps, a senior brother pauses at the altar of the refectory chapel, murmuring a soft prayer of thanksgiving and blessing. You step back, the hush of his invocation as soothing as any ASMR whisper. For these gifts and for the safe passage of your souls, receive our humble thanks. Strange fact, few people know some monks believe that invoking God's blessing over leftover food transferred divine grace to the ravens who would consume it, tiny black-winged angels ferrying crumbs of mercy across the skies. With baskets full, the monks file out through heavy doors onto the moonlit courtyard. You trail them past ancient gargoyles carved into the cloister walls, their stone faces leering down at you as if judging your taste in midnight snacks. A cool breeze ripples through the archways, carrying the scent of lavender from nearby herb gardens and the faint echo of distant chants. You tilt your head at the fluttering banners overhead, pilgrim shells and crosses painted in navy and crimson, reminders of journeys taken and blessings earned. Just beyond this cloister, a line of perches stands ready, each one a silent witness to the ritual's climax. You step forward, the crunch of gravel beneath your boots punctuating the night's hush, and watch as the senior brother lifts the baskets high. He scatters the scraps with gentle precision. Cabbage leaves rustle like silk as they fall, meat trimmings land with soft plops, and the last spoonful of pungent broth drips from the ladle in slow, deliberate arcs. Two mature ravens swoop down instantly, their wings beating in a gentle crescendo that reverberates against the cloister walls. Here, history brushes your fingertips. While the First Crusade captured Jerusalem in 1099, one of the era's most popular historical events, reshaping Christendom's horizons, this quiet ritual of blessings and leftovers played out nightly in monasteries across Europe. Historians still debate whether the ritual was born from practical charity to hungry birds, or if it symbolized a deeper theology of almsgiving, equating ravens with the poor and dispossessed. Either way, The tradition endures in hushed whispers among chroniclers and corvid enthusiasts alike. You kneel at the edge of the courtyard, letting the monk's reverent energy wash over you like a benediction. The ravens peck eagerly at cabbage stems, their beaks snapping with contentment as they work through morsels of meat. One raven pauses mid-peck, tilting its head to regard you directly, its eye reflecting the moon's silver glow. You offer it a stray turnip top with a playful flourish, and it snatches it deftly, an acrobatic flourish that would earn applause in any modern cooking show. The sensory tapestry unfolds, the cool night air tickles your cheeks, the muted rustle of raven feathers creates a private lullaby. The lingering aroma of spiced broth teases your palate. The soft glow of moonlight bathes the scene in ethereal calm. Above, tiny clusters of stars peek through the arches as if curious to witness this nightly communion of monk and bird. You breathe deeply, savoring the moment's delicate balance of the sacred and the mundane. As the baskets empty, the senior brother delivers a final blessing. May these crumbs teach gratitude and remind us that no offering is too small in God's eyes. You feel the weight of His words settle in your chest, a gentle reminder that even the smallest act of kindness, scattering leftovers, carries profound meaning. A young novice, cheeks flushed from the chill, collects the empty baskets and tucks them under his arm, humming softly as he heads back inside. You remain alone with the ravens as they finish the last scraps. One raven hops onto a low stone bench beside you, its dark feathers whispering against the night air. It cocks its head, watching you with unusual attentiveness, and you swear it tilts in silent question. Will you join me? Jokingly, you pat the bench and whisper, only if you promise not to bite my tunic. It ruffles its feathers as if considering. You can almost hear it muse over the decision before settling down. In earlier parts, you've warmed your hands by dawn porridge, crunched through stale bread, sampled fish scraps, stewed herbal broths, and savored honeyed wax treats under sunlit workshops. Here, under moonlit arches, you've witnessed how pilgrims' offerings transform into a nightly blessing for raven companions. The cycle of feast and blessing, so integral to monastic life, reveals a continuum of care that spans kitchen hearths and cloister shadows alike. Finally, as the last raven takes flight, its silhouette drifting toward a distant stars, you rise and dust gravel from your robes. The hush deepens, punctuated only by the soft echo of your own footsteps, and a final distant call that feels like farewell. You turn toward the refectory door, senses still humming with lantern-lit warmth and whispered benedictions. When you're ready to wander further, perhaps, into the garden gleaning greens or the choir Morcel collection, just murmur, continue, and we'll drift onward through the abbey's gentle mysteries. You slip through a low wooden gate into the monastery's walled garden, and the moment you enter, you're greeted by a riot of green so vivid it feels like you've stepped inside a living tapestry. Lavender hedges frame narrow stone paths, clumps of sage and mint rustle in a gentle breeze, and rows of tender lettuce and chard sway like dancers in slow motion. The air is thick with the heady perfume of basil and thyme, and you can almost taste the dew clinging to each leaf, nature's own wake-up call centuries before espresso machines existed. Your fingers brush against the soft fuzz of lemon balm, releasing a subtle citrus zing that tickles your nose and prompts a contented sigh. You crouch by a patch of parsley, marveling at how its bright green fronds catch the light, and you recall how In earlier parts, you inhaled smoky fish scraps and honeyed wax treats. Here, it's pure, unadulterated verdure. A monk beside you hums a chant as he snips sprigs of rosemary, the snip-snips sounding like the metronome to your botanical symphony. He drops the sprigs into a woven basket lined with oak leaves. Nothing goes to waste here, and explains, these greens will add vital vitamins to our raven's evening meal. You tilt your head, curiously, fresh greens in a raven's diet. It feels modern enough to feature in a health blog, except no wellness. Wednesday hashtag would ever capture the quiet reverence of this moment. You lean closer, inhaling the earthy aroma of thyme mingled with damp soil, and wonder why you're not growing a balcony garden instead of relying on overpriced grocery store herbs. In the distance, the faint sound of hammers rings out. It's easy to forget that in 1163, Pope Alexander III laid the foundation stone for Notre Dame de Paris, one of the era's most popular architectural marvels. As stonemasons chipped away at limestone in the city beyond here, you are gathering garden delights for raven companions. Historians still debate whether monastic horticulture revolved more around self-sufficiency or symbolic cultivation, but the lush abundance before you argues strongly for both. A sudden scurry draws your attention to a row of violet-colored violets tucked beneath a climbing rose. You bend down and gently cradle a blossom, marveling at its fragility. The monk nods approvingly and drops it into a shallow wooden bowl already brimming with chopped chard and soft young spinach leaves. He adds a handful of crushed carrot tops. Strange fact few people know, monks sometimes believe that carrot greens improved ravens' night vision, enabling them to spot predatory owls in the darkness. You can't help but picture a raven donning tiny night vision goggles and muttering, "Game on." The sensory tapestry unfolds the soft rustle of leaves underfoot, the muted drip of distilled dew off petals, and an ASMR-worthy scrape as the monk shaves slender strips of cucumber from a water barrel. You run a finger along one crisp slice, noting its cool, almost translucent flesh. Modern comparison, it's like enjoying a spa cucumber mask that you can also snack on zero preservatives, full spa cred. Two ravens swoop in black silhouettes against the emerald backdrop. One lands on a low bench and tilts its head expectantly. The other flutters to your shoulder with surprising delicacy for such a formidable bird. You dip a piece of shredded lettuce into a bowl of warmed broth left over from the herbal kitchens and offer it to your winged guest. It pecks with the precision of a skilled chef plating a amuse-bouche, then cocks its head as if appraising your technique. You whisper, "Not bad for a novice," and it ruffles its feathers in what you choose to interpret as approval. Nearby, a small wooden cart holds baskets of root vegetables and fragrant bundles of marjoram tied with twine. A young novice slides a basket toward you, encouraging you to select a few juicy green beans. You pinch one between your fingers, breaking it in half to reveal pale seeds within, and toss it to a raven perched on a carved stump. The bird snaps it up mid-air, its wings creating a soft rush that tickles your ear. You laugh these birds might just be the world's most elegant snackers. On a nearby bench lies an open horticultural treatise, its pages illustrated with hand-drawn herbs and marginalia noting feeding schedules. You glance at an annotation, "Add clover blossoms thrice weekly." Beneath it, another scribe has scribbled, "Historians still debate whether clover was nutritional or simply ornamental. but the ravens did seem to enjoy the color pop. You chuckle, imagining medieval monks debating herb merits over a steaming cup of nettle tea. As the sun dips lower, beams of golden light flicker through the foliage, casting intricate shadows across stone troughs now filled with a verdant melange. You run your hand through a tuft of mint, the scent springing to life once more, and feel a profound connection to generations of brothers who cultivated these gardens with care, knowing their labors would nourish both body and spirit. In the previous moments, you've witnessed dawn porridge and fish scraps. Here, you've tasted the pure essence of monastic cultivation. A final hush settles over the garden as the last raven hops off a low wall, wings folding with a soft whisper. The monk gathers the remaining greens, pressing them gently into leaves for compost, ensuring no scrap of living matter goes unused. You step back, the soft earth beneath your boots cool against your skin, and take a last deep breath of herbal tingles and mossy undertones. When you're ready to venture on, perhaps, to the choir morsel collection or the Lenten fair adjustments, just murmur continue, and we'll glide further into the Abbey's gentle rituals of raven care. You slip into the shadowed nave just as the choir rehearsal winds down and your boots echo softly against the polished stone floor. Candles flicker in wrought iron sconces, casting dancing silhouettes across lofty arches as monks in simple habits file out of the stalls. In the hush that follows their last resonant amen, you notice tiny morsels of cheese and torn fragments of bread scattered along the ends of wooden benches, crumbs of devotion left behind by fervent voices. You kneel to inspect one plump cube of aged cheddar, its aroma sharp and tangy, and can't help but muse that this feels like stumbling upon medieval hors d'oeuvres. A brother approaches with a wicker tray, bending low to gently scoop stray crumbs into a cloth-lined basket. You crouch beside him, inhaling the warm, yeasty scent of freshly broken bread, mingled with the rich musk of ripened cheese. It's oddly intimate, the faint squeak of cheese rind as it meets the palm, the soft thud of bread fragments landing on linen, the residual echo of Gregorian chant still humming in the air. You imagine the choir's voices rising here centuries ago, each note carrying both prayer and a secret snack for feathered friends. Here, the brother whispers, nodding toward the basket we rescue every scrap. You lift a stray sliver of Gouda, feeling its smooth surface yield slightly under your thumb. A raven's eye view unfolds in your mind. These bits will become midnight nibbles for corvid companions who mirror the choir's dusk chorus with their own cause. Modern comparison, it's like rescuing the last olive from your charcuterie board and offering it to the neighborhood squirrel's unexpected kindness, draped in ceremony. In the distance, you faintly hear a novice monk practicing scales on a dulcimer, the crystalline notes drifting through the nave like delicate snowflakes. It reminds you that in 1429, Joan of Arc's triumph at Orleans turned the tide of the 100 Years' War, one of the era's most popular historical events, resonating across Christendom. Yet here within these vaulted walls, another quiet victory takes place, turning leftover morsels into sustenance for creatures of lore. Historians still debate whether these choir master-driven collections began as practical thrift or as symbolic extensions of the Eucharist, offering crumbs of grace to all creatures. You lean close as the brother picks up a wad of Parmesan rind, its salty exterior puckering the skin of your fingertips. He snaps off a crumb and tosses it gently to a waiting raven perched on a low pillar. The bird catches it, with theatrical flare talons clicking softly against stone. You grin at its precision-perfect timing that would put Olympic divers to shame. A warm chuckle escapes you. Even ravens appreciate a good rind you muse, and the brother merely smiles as though he's heard that pun 1,000 times. A strange fact, few people know medieval monks sometimes rubbed cheese rinds on manuscripts to prevent ink from smudging a practiced thought, to infuse texts with a smooth finish, and by extension, imbue ravens feeding on those rinds with an uncanny ability to unravel cryptic scripts. You can't help but imagine a raven deciphering a hidden message in a marginal note, cawing triumphantly at the secrets of illuminated pages. The thought sends a delightful shiver through your spine. Sensory details swirl around you, the dust motes glittering in candlebeams, the faint whiff of musty vellum from nearby bookcases, the soft scrape of leather-bound hymnals as monks deposit them on pews. You rub your fingers together, tasting a hint of chalk from the stone floor and the residual tang of cheese, an aroma so evocative it feels like a meditation in flavor. ASMR aficionados would revel in the soft crackle of rind against stone, the gentle rumble of a raven's gullet, the distant echo of wooden pews. As the basket empties, you follow the brother through a narrow doorway into the cloistered courtyard, the moonlight spilling across fountain basins carved with holy symbols. 2 adult ravens wait patiently on a low wall, their glossy feathers absorbing silvery rays. The monk lifts the basket, scattering the final bits with reverent flair. Each crumb arcs through the night air, landing with a delicate plop on flagstones where the birds converge in eager harmony. Their collective caw reverberates like a nocturnal chorus, an avian echo to the daytime chants. You straighten and brush dust from your robe heart, warmed by this quiet communion of music, manuscript, and raven feast. In earlier moments, you've stood amid dawn porridge rituals and festival grain medleys. Here, you've witnessed the sacred salvage of choir leftovers transformed into nourishment for noble birds. You inhale deeply, letting the blend of candle smoke, aged cheese, and midnight air fill your lungs. When you're ready to uncover more hidden chapters, perhaps the Lenten fare adjustments or the regional recipe variations just whisper, continue, and we'll step softly into the next secret of monastic raven care. You step into the dimly lit refectory on the first day of Lent and immediately sense a shift in the air lighter, somehow sharpened by austerity and the faint tang of boiled pulses. The long wooden tables, once groaning under festive grain medleys, now bear simple bowls of coarse lentil gruel and unadorned barley water. You pull your hood tighter as a monk ladles out the pale, muddy broth, its surface rippling like fog on a swamp. It's a far cry from the honeyed wax treats and saffron-spiced barley wine of yesteryear. But in this season of penitence, even ravens must partake in humility. You crouch by a low bench to examine the raven ration chart etched into a plank of oak. Tuesdays and Fridays, no animal products, just pulse porridge. Wednesdays, fish scraps only drained of oil. Sundays, a small handful of crushed chestnut mash. It reminds you of modern meal planning apps, but with none of the convenience of push notifications, just carved-in stone devotion. A soft cough draws your attention to Brother Gerard, who explains, "We mirror our fast for the birds to honor creation's unity." You nod, imagining raven hunger pangs, synchronized with monastic calendars. As you lift a steaming bowl to your lips purely for research purposes, you swear you inhale the earthy aroma of lentils, bitter and grounded, like tasting the heart of the earth itself. Sensory details flood in the gentle clink of wooden bowls on stone, the distant murmur of monks reciting penitential psalms. The cold draft slipping in through a narrow window high above, carrying hints of rain on slate. You imagine each raven pacing its perch keenly, awaiting its own share of Lent's stripped down fare. In the background, the chapel bells toll for matins, their hollow resonance marking another hour of vigil. It reminds you that in 1095, Pope Urban II summoned the First Crusade at the Council of Clermont, one of the era's most popular historical events, rallying thousands to arms in the name of faith. Here, in contrast, faith manifests not in battle, but in bowls of humble gruel and modest garden greens. Historians still debate whether monastic fasting rules inspired secular dietary customs or vice versa, but either way, the ravens learn to embrace Lent's lean simplicity alongside their stewards. You dip a crust of barley bread into the bean-thick broth and break it apart, watching the grains absorb the liquid until they swell like tiny balloons. A raven, perched on a nearby windowsill, tilts its head, eyeing your morsels with keen interest, no doubt weighing whether these Lent offerings can match the richness of its usual feast. You offer it a small piece. It hops down, pecks tentatively, then ruffles its feathers in reluctant acceptance. You can almost hear it think, well, it's not cod scrap, but you do what you must. A strange fact, few people know some abbeys once added crushed willow bark to raven rations during Lent, believing it imparted resilience against spiritual melancholy. You shudder at the thought of herbal aspirin for birds, but you can't deny the image's quaint charm, a medieval bird aspirin that promised cheer in a season of reflection. As you nibble your bread, you imagine willow-infused fluff spreading through raven communities like a secret monastic remedy. Brother Gerard gestures toward a wooden trough where leftover vegetable peels from the infirmary parsnip skins, beet tops, onion chaff are boiled into a thin broth. You lean in, inhaling the sweet, sour perfume of root vegetables, and note how every scrap is transformed into raven sustenance. Its pragmatism stripped to its essence, nothing wasted, everything repurposed in service of creation's lowest creatures. Modern zero-waste zealots would applaud, but they'd need to carve their mottos into oak instead of printing glossy flyers. You glance at a small ledger tucked beside the trough, its pages stained and ink-smudged. The entry for Lenten raven feed lists precise measurements: 2 handfuls of lentils, a quarter cup of boiled greens, 3 small fish flakes for Wednesdays. Beneath it, a margin note reads, historians still debate whether specific Lenten rations improved ravens' plumage sheen or merely tested the monk's resolve. You chuckle, picturing earnest scribes arguing over bird feather glossiness instead of parchment quality. A soft flutter catches your ear as a raven descends to investigate the trough, its sharp beak skimming the surface for submerged lentils. You lean closer, feeling the warmth of the broth seep through your robe, and relish the gentle hum of raven beaks dipping and lifting, an ASMR moment so simple yet profound. The cool stone beneath your knees contrasts with the broth's steam, grounding you in the present even as you connect with centuries of fasting tradition. Outside, the late afternoon sun filters through the abbey's cloister, casting elongated shadows across the courtyard. You remember earlier parts of your journey dawn, barley porridge festival, grain medleys, honeyed wax treats, and you marvel at how Lent's austerity weaves seamlessly into the tapestry of monastic life. Each season marked by specific rituals, each raven cared for through every liturgical turn. As the final raven retreats, its beak stained with lentil residue, you rise and brush lentil pulp from your fingertips. A novice monk approaches with a wooden cup of thin barley water, Lenten hydration in its purest form. You accept it with a wry smile, raising the rim in a mock toast to moderation and feathered fasts. The monk's eyes crinkle with amusement as though he's heard that line in 1,000 Lenten homilies. You step away, letting the cool late Lenten air wash over you, and pause by an arched window to watch the sun dip below the east cloister's roofline. Shadows lengthen, and the ravens settle on perches trimmed with bare branches. Lenten austerity reflected even in their Spartan roosts. You inhale deeply, tasting the last trace of barley water on your tongue, and feel a quiet fulfillment in shared simplicity. Whenever you're ready to emerge from Lent's solemn embrace and explore the next chapter, regional recipe variations, or the symbolic Eucharistic feed, just whisper continue, and we'll carry on through the Abbey's enduring devotion to its raven companions. You sling your travel satchel over one shoulder and step beyond the familiar cloister walls into rolling countryside, the air tinged with dew-kissed grass and distant church bells. Each abbey you visit seems to have its own culinary fingerprint, like medieval food trucks parked along pilgrimage routes, but run by monks in habits instead of hipsters in hoodies. You trudge along gravel path lined with yew trees, the crunch underfoot echoing in the dawn hush, and wonder which regional twist will greet your raven companions today. Your first stop is the Highland Priory, nestled against heather-covered hills, where the monks serve a hearty chestnut mash instead of barley porridge, because oak and chestnut trees outnumber barley fields up here. You press a mittened hand to the bowl and inhale the sweet, nutty aroma mixed with a faint smokiness, as if someone grilled autumn leaves over a peat fire. The texture is pillowy. Imagine mashed sweet potatoes wearing a tweed coat, and you watch two ravens peck daintily their beaks, crunching the occasional crunchy nuttiness like connoisseurs, sampling gourmet granola. A light sarcasm bubbles up. If Instagram had existed, this would be Highland Bird Bowl Golds. A monk ladles a swirl of thin cream, technically leftover whey from cheese making across the top, forming concentric rings reminiscent of ancient Celtic spirals. It's a strange fact few people know that chestnut-based feeds gave ravens a richer plumage hue the monks claimed, making them look almost iridescent in the autumn sun. Historians still debate whether this dazzling sheen inspired Celtic knot designs in illuminated manuscripts, or if it was simply poetic license by the artistic scribes. Next, you cross a narrow ford into a coastal abbey, where the menu flips again, pale barley porridge infused with crushed seaweed and a pinch of salt from the nearby shore. You kneel on a smooth stone jetty, the gusty sea breeze tangling your hair, and scoop a spoonful of this briny blend. The aroma is marine and herbaceous, like sipping a seaside broth that tastes of bracken and ocean spray. The porridge's al dente grains give a satisfying bite, a textural overture to the sea's symphony. Two ravens sleek and wet-feathered from a morning dip converge in a choreographed car duet, their sharp cries punctuating the waves. You quipped to the Abbey cook if coastal ravens posted TikToks, they'd outshine any seagull. He grins, tucking a salt-stained bandana behind his ear. He explains how local fishermen once donated dried seaweed leftovers turning waste into raven cuisine. It's one of the most popular historical events in monastic trade coastal communities, bartering for grains and herbs, yet few remember the corvid benefit. Historians still debate whether this seaweed porridge tradition began as a dietary necessity or as a ritual homage to St. Brendan's legendary voyage. Your journey then leads inland to a vineyard abbey, where monks press grapes by day and let the pomace, the skins and seeds, macerate in water to create a ruby-tinted feed. You crouch beside a barrel, watching a crimson swirl settle into a thick, tangy mash. It smells like the merest hint of fine wine, minus the alcohol, and tastes of fermented fruit and grain, mingling in rustic harmony. A raven hops forward, pecks a chunk, and cocks its head as though surprised by the subtle, sour twist. You whisper, "Classy, choice Raven Ross," and it fluffs its feathers in apparent approval. Here's a strange fact. Few people know grape pomace mash was believed to aid ravens' digestive health thanks to natural tannins antioxidants avant la lettre. You muse that this might have been the medieval precursor to modern probiotic snacks. A local chronicler's note in the Abbey Ledger reads, "Monks exchanged wine lees for barley lip," though what precisely barley lip referred to remains a tantalizing mystery historians still debate. Finally, you reach a mountainous border priory where hardy monks cultivate buckwheat and rye, blending the two into a dark, nutty porridge flecked with wild blueberries. You scoop a taste and are struck by the earthy sweetness against the rye's rustic backbone like a forager's dream breakfast. The cool mountain air carries the scent of pine and sun-warmed stone, and you watch ravens soar overhead, silhouetted against snow-dusted peaks. You offer a bowl to one raven, and it pecks so enthusiastically you worry it might break into an unsolicited dance. A soft laugh escapes you as you think back on earlier parts, dawn barley mixes, stale bread, buffets, fish, scrap feasts, herbal broths, honeyed wax treats, festival medleys, pilgrim leftovers, garden greens, choir morsels, Lenten austerity, and now this patchwork of regional delicacies. Each abbey's local landscape shaped the bird's diet, forging a network of shared knowledge and culinary creativity that spanned mountain seas and forests. The final sensory detail lingers: the warmth of a slate bench under your palm, the distant murmur of mountain streams, the gentle clink of raven beaks against wooden bowls, and the lingering tang of chestnut, seaweed, grape, and buckwheat infused into your memory. As you rise, the ravens flock around you, their raven-black silhouettes, a living mosaic against the changing sky. When you're ready to witness how feeding ravens mirrored sacred rites, perhaps the symbolic Eucharistic feed awaits. Just murmur, continue, and we'll glide onward through the Abbey's devout chapters of avian care. You slip quietly into the hushed stone chapel where shafts of pale light filter through narrow lancet windows and land like silver feathers on the flagstone floor. The air is thick with incense, a gentle swirl of frankincense and myrrh that clings to your robes and leaves a faint, sweet aftertaste in your nostrils. Before you, monks stand in two neat rows, holding simple wooden trays laden with morsels of consecrated bread, each piece the very heart of their faith. And there, perched on low benches, the ravens wait in solemn silence, their inky eyes reflecting the glow of votive candles. It's a scene that feels more like a living icon than a feeding ceremony, one where the boundary between human devotion and avian care dissolves in the soft glow. A brother in a white surplice steps forward, raises his hand in benediction, and intones a quiet blessing. You hear the gentle rustle of raven feathers as they shift their weight, each whispering movement amplified by the sacred hush. The scent of incense mingles with the faint aroma of warmed bread, releasing a sensory hum that feels almost as comforting as a whispered lullaby. You lean in heart pounding in anticipation, and it's impossible not to feel the weight of centuries of ritual pressing gently against your soul. This isn't mere bird feeding, it's a sacrament shared with creatures once seen as messengers between worlds. As the brother breaks a loaf into uneven shards, you catch the distant toll of the abbey bell, marking the hour of Compline. That bell's echo carries you back to 1215, when popes and princes gathered for the Fourth Lateran Council, one of the era's most popular historical events that formally defined the doctrine of transubstantiation. Back then, the meaning of bread as the body of Christ was sealed in church law. Here you're witnessing that mystery extended to feathered guests. Historians still debate whether this ritual was a deliberate mirror of the Eucharist or a survival of ancient pagan feeding rites. But either way, the reverence is unmistakable. The first raven steps forward with statuesque graced talons clicking softly against the polished stone. You feel the cool weight of the incense haze on your skin and the muted crackle of candle flames in your ears. When the shard of blessed bread hovers before its beak, it pecks with surprising delicacy and almost reverent gesture. The soft crunch resonates like a secret drumbeat echoing in the vaulted ceiling above. You can almost taste the mingled flavors, the tang of leavened grain, the faint smokiness from the charcoal hearth where the loaves were baked, and the intangible essence of consecration that no earthly recipe could replicate. A faint gasp of incense smoke drifts through the chapel as the second raven takes its turn. You watch the bird tilt its head, the rim of candlelight catching each glossy feather, and for a moment you swear it bows its neck as though acknowledging the sacredness of the offering. A light modern comparison flits through your mind. It's like a fine dining experience where you're honored as a guest of the chef, only here you're both guest and observer in a ceremony older than most nations. The sensory tapestry, stone chill, incense warmth, the hush of devotion combines into a reverent intimacy that borders on ecstatic. Between shards, you notice an elderly monk murmuring quietly into a small bowl of water, then wiping each piece of bread before placing it on the tray. You lean closer and catch a slip of Latin on his lips, a brief absolution over crumbs believed by some brothers to purify the offering anew. A strange fact, few people know certain monasteries once sprinkled consecrated bread over raven nests, believing it would grant the fledglings spiritual protection and guide lost travelers by the bird's calls. It's the sort of detail that makes you pause mid-breath, marveling at how faith and ornithology intertwined in unexpected ways. As the final pieces are distributed, the monks step back and begin a soft chant in unison, each note rising and falling like the tide. The ravens, now sated, preen their feathers in contented harmony. You watch the play of light on obsidian wings, the faint sheen a silent testament to the ritual's power. In that moment, you sense the convergence of two worlds, the monastic vow of humility and the raven's world of sky and shadow. Both converge here in a shared act of breaking bread, reminding you that nourishment transcends species and seasons alike. When the chant fades and the last swirl of incense drifts upward, you step forward to brush a stray crumb from your cloak. The chill of the chapel returns, tempered by the warmth of shared sacrament. You inhale deeply, the taste of incense and barley lingering on your tongue, and feel the gravity of this practice settle into your bones. It's a quiet revolution of care, one that binds monk and raven in a communion older than stone or song. As you turn toward the exit, the gentle caw of a raven, soft, almost grateful, follows you into the corridor. Having witnessed a ritual that marries liturgy and avian companionship, you're poised on the brink of yet another hidden chapter. When you're ready to explore the post-Mass crumb tithe or the Norse-influenced debate, simply whisper, "Continue," and we'll carry on through the Abbey's time-worn mysteries. You slip quietly back into the chapel just after dawn's first light, your footsteps echoing softly on chilled flagstones as you approach the altar. The morning Mass has concluded, candles guttered low incense smoke, still curling toward vaulted ceilings, and an air of hushed devotion lingers like a whispered secret. Before you two monks kneel at the altar rail, gently sweeping up the tiny fragments of consecrated bread that have fallen during the Eucharist. Each crumb glints faintly in the soft glow as if holding a secret of grace. As you crouch behind a carved oak pew, you feel the cool stone beneath your knees and inhale the mingled scents of myrrh, beeswax, and old timber. The first monk dips a feather duster made from the down of unused candle wicks into a polished silver basin of holy water, then flicks it lightly over each gathered crumb, murmuring a brief Latin blessing. The water droplets glisten like dewdrops on bird feathers, and you can almost taste the reverence in the air. Once purified, the breadcrumbs are carefully collected in a shallow, ornate bowl. You lean forward, catching the faint metallic tang of silver mingled with stale barley undertones, remnants of the communion wafer's humble ingredients. A gentle rustle of robes announces the arrival of Brother Simeon, whose lined face breaks into a warm smile when he sees you. These crumbs, he whispers, are our tithe to creation beyond these walls. You stand and follow as the monks process out of the chapel, carrying the bowl like a reliquary. The cool morning breeze brushes in through open doors, carrying the scent of dew-wet grass and the distant murmur of a nun ringing the convent bell. Your senses sharpen the soft click of wooden rosaries, the faint patter of feathers overhead, the distant toll of the great bell, marking the 6th hour. Outside, a row of low stone perches has been set beneath climbing ivy. 2 sleek ravens, early risers, wait expectantly, eyes glinting like jet beads. Brother Simeon lifts the bowl and scatters the crumbs in a gentle arc, each fragment landing like a silent prayer upon the cold stones. The ravens hop forward in unison, their beaks clicking against the flagstones as they peck methodically at each blessed morsel. The sound is a delicate percussion like the soft tap of rain on a wooden roof, every note resonating in the stillness. You watch entranced by the bird's reverence. One raven crouches low, its feathers smoothing as it delicately lifts a crumb. Another stretches its neck, catching the crumb mid-air in an elegant arc. In the background, a choir of distant bells begins the Angelus, their clear tones weaving through rose-latticed windows. It reminds you that in 1066, the Norman conquest reshaped England, one of the most popular historical events of the Middle Ages, a moment when crumbs of power fell differently upon history's table. Historians still debate whether this ceremony of crumbs was inspired by secular alms-giving laws or evolved from sacred antiphonal chants. But the result is a ritual as profound as any royal decree. A strange fact, few people know some monasteries would reserve the tiniest offcuts, crumbs too small, even for ravens to feed ants in hidden garden alcoves, believing that no creature, however minute, should lack its share of divine blessing. You can't help but smile at the thought of ant priests feasting on leftover wafers, their tiny bodies carrying whispers of sanctity beneath the archways. As the final crumbs disappear beneath raven feet, Brother Simeon inclines his head in silent gratitude. You feel the crisp morning air brush against your face, carrying a promise of new beginnings and shared sustenance. The ravens, now sated, preen themselves calmly, their glossy plumage absorbing the pale dawn light. You reach out, running a finger along one bird's sleek back, feeling the soft give of down beneath firm quills, a tactile echo of centuries-old compassion. Behind you, the chapel doors swing closed with a hushed thud. You inhale deeply, tasting the faint sweetness of broken bread, still clinging to the morning breeze. In earlier moments, you've witnessed ritual at dawn festival feasts, herbal infusions, and sculpted wax treats. Here, in this quiet crumb tithe, you've seen how even the smallest morsel becomes an act of profound charity. You rise and dust your robes, the chapel's hush settling around you like a benediction. Ahead lies more of the abbey's hidden life, perhaps the Norse-influenced debate, or the final twilight gruel farewell awaits. When you're ready to continue, just murmur, continue, and we'll drift onward through these gentle corridors of history and care. You slip through a side door into the abbey's fading twilight torchlight, flickering against ancient stones as you follow the echo of distant raven calls. The air carries the cool tang of autumn leaves, damp earth, and just a hint of sea salt drifting from far-off shores, an olfactory nod to far-flung Norse coasts. You press a hand to the rough-hewn wall, feeling centuries of history pulse beneath your fingertips, and wonder whether the corvid rituals you've witnessed here sprang from Viking sagas or purely monastic invention. You probably won't survive a theory that tries to wed longhouses and cloister walls in a single cup of mead, but hey, it's worth exploring. A lone raven lands on a stone bench beside you, its feathers ruffling in the breeze like a small black sail. You crouch to its level, sensing its sharp gaze, half inquisitive, half. Do you really expect me to eat spilled barley in this weather-modern comparison? It's like looking at a tattooed barista who's equally comfortable behind an espresso machine or a Norse battle axe. The raven's claw taps impatiently, demanding you get on with it. You clear your throat and begin in the mid-11th century, when Harald Hardrada's forces swept across Europe. Ravens were revered as Odin's messengers, guiding lost warriors and foretelling fates. It's one of the era's most popular historical events, culminating at Stamford Bridge in 1066, where Norse and Saxon steel clashed. Yet here, in this hallowed cloister, monks treated ravens not as harbingers of doom, but as cherished companions. Historians still debate whether these avian feasts were a deliberate Christian reclamation of pagan symbols or a happy accident born from practical bird care. Picture medieval academics arguing over dinner. I say we feed them barley. You insist it's sacred ritual. Shall we toss a coin? Your fingers graze a low table, its surface scarred by countless bowls of grain and fish scraps. You inhale the lingering aroma of smoldering peat left over from winter fires and the faint metallic tang of iron tools cast aside. The sensory mix feels like stumbling into a Viking hall, repurposed as a monk's pantry, if such a place ever existed. A faint laugh escapes you. Imagine a berserker trying to chant vespers hysterical, right? The raven cocks its head as if it half agrees. Nearby, a weathered manuscript lies open on a lectern, its pages filled with intricate runes, alongside Latin script, a rare blend of Norse and Christian notation. You peer at a marginal note, raven feed mirroring sacrificial rite. The scribe's quill strokes tremble, betraying uncertainty. A strange fact, few people know certain monasteries recorded offerings to ravens in runic calendars, leading some to argue that monks learned these practices from Norse settlers. Historians still debate whether these runic annotations denote spiritual syncretism or simply the scribe's playful curiosity, kind of like monks doodling LOL in margin in medieval vernacular. Sensory details wash over you. The soft hiss of dripping water from a leaking roof, the dull thud of a raven's wing against a beam, the distant murmur of chanting monks preparing compline. Each sound mingles in a hushed symphony, draping the corridor in both solemnity and a hint of mischief, like trekking through a cathedral that doubles as a bird aviary / secret Viking embassy. Seriously, don't try to decode those runes at home unless you want to end up carving spirals in your own margins. You step into an alcove where two ravens perch on an aged gargoyle, their silhouettes merging with the carved stone. You hold out a small bowl of spiced barley, cinnamon, nutmeg, and hints of dried juniper that smell like Christmas wreaths at a Renaissance fair. One raven hops forward, pecks, then flutters back to its perch feathers tipped with golden granules. The other stretches its neck, eyeing you as if to say, "Spice it up next time, more clove." You grin and imagine a Viking chef seasoning roast boar for a raven side dish. Turning, you spot a stout monk adjusting a tapestry depicting Saint Benedict, handing grain to a raven, a scene rendered with awkward medieval charm. You approach, and he offers you a wooden cup of warmed spiced wine, dregs the last trickle from the evening's refreshment. You sniff the ember-kissed aroma of fermented grape skins and swallow, slowly letting the warmth ebb through your chest. It's like receiving a Norse toasting horn repurposed for monastic modesty, strange, yet oddly comforting. In this tapestry, the monk whispers, we see echoes of Norse myth ravens as war companions, spirit guides. But our tradition frames them as symbols of watchfulness and divine care. You nod, tracing the tapestry's frayed edges where paint has chipped away, revealing damp stone beneath. It feels like reading between the lines of two worlds, each struggling to claim the same winged creature. Historians still debate, the monk continues with a wry grin, whether the raven's role here is salvaged pagan lore or purely ecclesiastical devotion, though I suspect the truth involves both a smidge of irony and a hearty dose of human imagination. As you step back into the corridor's cool gloom, the ravens rise together, dark shapes drifting toward the gabled roof where they roost for the night. Their collective call echoes like an ancient reminder. History isn't black and white, much like their feathers, but a tapestry woven from many threads. The scent of old stone, spiced grain, and peat lingers on your skin, and you feel the weight of 1,000 whispered debates settle into your bones. You pause at the threshold, gazing once more at the flickering torchlight and the path you walked from dawn porridge to stale breadfish scraps to herbal broths, and now this twilight nexus of Norse and monastic worlds. A gentle invitation drifts through your mind. Soon you'll descend upon the final twilight meal, the gruel farewell, and bid these ravens good night. But for now, you let the echoes of raven wings and scholarly murmurs accompany you down the corridor, aware that the lines between legend and devotion blur in the soft glow of candlelight. Whenever you're ready to savor the final chapter, twilight, gruel, farewell, simply murmur, continue, and we'll conclude tonight's journey with a gentle send-off for our avian friends. You settle onto a low stone bench in the dusk-lit courtyard, the last amber rays of sunset painting the abbey walls in honeyed gold. A gentle hush drapes over the cloister as monks emerge from the kitchen, each cradling a wooden bowl of warm gruel sweetened with honey and spiced with a whisper of cinnamon. The comforting steam rises like wisps of prayer, curling toward the vaulted arches above, and you inhale deeply, tasting the soft heat on your tongue before even lifting the bowl. It feels like wrapping yourself in a fleece blanket by a crackling hearth, if fleece blankets also smelled faintly of barley and beeswax. As you lift the first spoonful, the gruel's silky texture coats your palate, blending the earthy warmth of simmered barley with the golden sweetness of wildflower honey. You pause to savor the faint sting of cinnamon on your lip like a tiny velvet kick, and you marvel at how something so simple can feel like a royal banquet. Around you, ravens descend from their roosts in the gargoyled eaves, their feathers ruffling in soft agreement as if drawn by an invisible dinner bell. One raven swoops in and alights on the rim of your bowl beak, poised with polite restraint. No seagull-level dive attacks here. With gentle humor, you whisper, "Hold on, friend. Let me stir in an extra drizzle of honey before you judge my pouring skills." It's a modern comparison that likely would have bewildered a medieval monk. Imagine trying to explain Starbucks to someone whose only coffee is the bitter tea of penitence, but the raven blinks knowingly as though accustomed to these playful exchanges. You share a smile, feeling the unexpected camaraderie between you and this sleek, intelligent creature. In the far corner, the abbey's bell tolls 8, marking the hour of compline. Its low resonance vibrates through the stones, joining the rhythm of raven caws and the murmur of monks' soft hymns. It reminds you that centuries ago in 1440, Johannes Gutenberg unveiled the printing press, one of the most popular historical events that revolutionized the spread of knowledge. Yet here, in the fading light, it's the handwritten care of these bowls, the slow stirring by aged hands, that carries the evening's true magic. Historians still debate whether the invention of movable type led monks to shift focus from manuscript copying to culinary creativity, but either way, the art of gruel remains a testament to devotion in any form. You scoop another spoonful and feel the gentle tug of warmth as it slips down your throat. The courtyard air is cool against your cheeks, flecked with the scent of lavender from the infirmary gardens and the faint tang of rain on ancient stone. Every sensory detail envelops you, the soft clink of spoon against bowl, the low rustle of feathers settling on perches, the distant hum of lantern-lit corridors preparing for night. It's a lullaby, woven from stone and steam, inviting your senses to unwind. A monk drifts by with a final basket of gruel, pausing to sprinkle crushed basil over the surface, a strange fact few people know. Some abbeys believed basil's aromatic oils soothed ravens into deeper slumber, guiding them to safer roosts. You can't help but imagine ravens dozing in feather pillow forts, dreaming of basil-scented cloudscapes. Historians still debate whether this was a genuine avian wellness practice or simply fragrant showmanship, but the sight of green flecks dancing atop amber porridge feels like the perfect nightcap. The raven on your bowl leans forward its beak, breaking the surface with tender precision. You watch as it lifts a honey-drizzled spoonful and tilts its head, the setting sun glinting on each glossy feather. A soft caw escapes as though in approval, and you laugh quietly. A Michelin star for birds, I see. The monk nearby chuckles, his eyes crinkling beneath his cowl. And you sense the shared delight in this simple ritual. No medieval banquet could rival the joy in a raven's satisfied call. As the last spoonfuls vanish, the monks gather the empty bowls, wiping each one with linen cloths before stacking them like sacred chalices. You set your bowl aside and stretch your limbs, feeling the comforting ache of a belly gently full. Around you, the ravens flock toward their sleeping ledges, their wings beating in a soft crescendo that settles into a hush as they tuck their heads beneath feathers. The courtyard dims to candlelit twinkles, each lantern a silent guardian against the night's chill. You rise, brushing stray drops of gruel from your sleeve, and take a final look at the scene monks retreating to cells for midnight prayer, ravens perched in ordered rows, and you standing between worlds of stone and sky. The sensory tapestry of barley steam, honey warmth, basil fragrance, and stone-cool air lingers on your skin and memory. It's the closing chapter of tonight's journey, a peaceful farewell that reminds you that care, whether in a grand manuscript or a humble bowl, resonates across centuries and species alike. As you step back through the cloister arch, the whispers of raven wings and distant chants follow you gently into the night. Slowly now, let your breath deepen and your thoughts settle like feathers drifting to rest. The abbey's echoes fade into soft silence, and you find yourself floating on the warmth of shared ritual. With each exhale, imagine the courtyard lanterns dimming, the raven's last caw drifting into dream, and the stone walls settling into peaceful slumber. Let the hum of memory cradle you, the hush of dawn, porridge, the crunch of stale bread buffets the brine-kissed fish, scraps the soothing herbal broth, the glow of honeyed wax treats the harvest festival's medley, the pilgrim's blessed leftovers, the garden's verdant bounty, the choir's scattered morsels, the austere Lenten bowls, the vibrant regional feasts, the solemn Eucharistic feed, the humble crumb tithe, and now this twilight gruel farewell. Feel your eyelids grow heavy as the abbey's rhythms lull you, the drip of basil-infused broth, the soft scrape of spoon on bowl, the flutter of raven wings, the hush of a prayered stone. Let these gentle words guide you into a dreamlike drift, where ancient cloisters and feathered companions dance in quiet harmony. Hush now, as a lullaby stirs in your mind an echo of chant and caw, leading you softly beyond the candle's glow and into a realm of restful peace. Good night.